Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to crack the code of a super high-stakes literature exam. And in doing so, we're going to uncover a massive, revolutionary shift in Western culture. A shift that, believe it or not, still totally shapes how you and I think and feel.
So check this out. Over 100,000. That's how many students in India are prepping for something called the UGC NET. Now, this isn't just any test. We're talking about an incredibly competitive, career-defining exam in English literature. If you pass this thing, you could be set for a seriously prestigious academic career.
So that brings us to the big question, right? What on earth can a test about 18th century poetry possibly reveal about a revolution in how we think and feel? Well, that's what we're here to find out. We are going to deconstruct this exam piece by piece to figure out why this specific period, the pre-Romantic era, is so critical that people's careers still depend on it, like 250 years later. Okay, let's dive in.
First up, we're going to look at the exam itself. But here's the twist. We're not just looking at these as test questions. Nope, we're going to treat each one like a clue, a breadcrumb in our investigation into a world that was changing in a huge way.
Okay, so take a look at this. This is a pretty typical question. Which among the following is an incomplete poem by P.B. Shelley? Now pause for a second. It's not just asking what he wrote. It's asking about the circumstances of his life, specifically what he left unfinished. Kind of weird, right? Why would that little detail be so incredibly important?
And this is where we start to crack the code. The answer is the triumph of life. And what this tells us is that the exam isn't just about the poems themselves. It's testing a whole cultural fascination with the artist's life, their supposed genius, and yeah, even their tragic death. I mean, this was a radical departure from the past, where the thinking was that only the work should matter, not the person behind it.
So, this new obsession with the tortured genius, it's really just a hint of a much, much bigger change. We're talking about a whole society moving away from a world of rigid, rational order and turning towards something way more personal, way more emotional.
And this table just lays it all out so perfectly. You can see the whole shift here. In just a few decades, we go from literature that's all about logic, satire, and the fancy elite society in London, to stuff that's all about deep feelings, sadness in the rural countryside. The focus literally flips from the powerful and rich to the humble and the poor.
And you have to understand, this wasn't just about poetry changing. This was a fundamental shift in how people saw the entire world. And honestly, the best way to get it is to think about gardens. It's a move away from that formal, geometric French garden, where every hedge is perfectly trimmed and nature is totally controlled by human reason. Instead, people started to prefer the wild, organic, English-style garden, where nature's own power and messy beauty are the whole point.
So, let's dig into this new cult of feeling a bit more. And we can do that by looking at something that comes up on the exam all the time. A group of poets known as the Graveyard School. Yeah, really.
Okay, check out these lines. The boast of heraldry, the pomp of power, awaits alike the inevitable hour. The paths of glory lead but to the grave. This is from one of the most tested poems on the entire exam. So what's the big deal? Why is it so important? I mean, think about it. The poem isn't about some great king or a war hero. It's just a guy meditating in a graveyard, thinking about the anonymous villagers buried all around him.
And here is the absolutely revolutionary idea. By focusing on death, these poets were making a radical argument that mortality is the great equalizer. Those paths of glory lead to the grave for everyone, whether you're a king or a farmer. For pretty much the first time, literature was expressing this deep, profound sympathy for the lives and the lost potential of ordinary people. Huge.
Okay, so this new fascination with sad feelings, with death and decay, it leads directly to a brand new type of story. A genre that wasn't just designed to make you feel something, but to make you feel a specific, powerful, and kinda terrifying emotion.
So to really get the Gothic novel, we first have to talk about this one key idea, the sublime. What is it? Well, it's that feeling of awe, wonder, and even a little bit of terror you get when you're faced with the sheer power of nature. Think of a massive thunderstorm, or standing at the edge of a cliff looking at a huge mountain range. It's that feeling of being both overwhelmed and totally thrilled at the same time. You feel tiny, but also exhilarated. And people started actively looking for that feeling.
And that new appetite for these intense, sublime feelings, well, it gave birth to the Gothic novel. It all kicks off with Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto. Suddenly, writers were all about exploiting mystery and horror. They set their stories in crumbling old castles and spooky manors, and they threw in everything: ancient curses, ghosts, supernatural mysteries, the whole shebang.
And the goal? Super simple. As the study materials themselves say, to create chilling terror. I mean, this was a complete 180 from the calm, rational ideals of the age before it. These writers didn't want to make you think. Not really. They wanted to make your heart pound out of your chest.
So you see what's happening here, right? We're seeing how all these different pieces, this new focus on personal feelings, this celebration of wild nature, this desire for sublime terror, they were all coming together. They were building a bridge to a completely new literary universe.
And this timeline just lays it all out. You can see the evolution so clearly. You start in the early 18th century with Alexander Pope and his super-rational, controlled poetry. Then, boom, the 1740s hit, and you get the gloomy graveyard poets. Then Gray's Elegy doubles down on that. A little later, Walpole kicks off the whole Gothic thing, and it all leads up to 1798, the big moment, when Wordsworth and Coleridge publish lyrical ballads, and the Romantic Age officially begins.
So here's the big takeaway, both for those students taking the exam and for us. This pre-Romantic era, this age of transition, it was the essential foundation. It was the launch pad. Without the graveyard poets making it okay to write about feelings and death, without the Gothic novelists exploring terror, without that new focus on nature, the great Romantic poets we all know, Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats, they just wouldn't have had the groundwork or even the cultural permission to write the amazing stuff they did.
Which brings us all the way back to that first question: why should any of this matter to us today? Well, it's because the core ideas that this revolution fought for, things like the importance of your own individual feelings, having a deep connection to nature, and even a fascination with the mysterious and the scary, those ideas are still completely baked into our culture.
No, seriously, think about it. Every time you tell a friend to follow your heart or be true to yourself, or every time you go for a hike in the woods just to get away from the city, or every single time you buy a ticket for a horror movie, you are living out the legacy of this 250-year-old revolution. And that is the incredible secret we managed to uncover, all by cracking the code of a literature exam. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.